Hi, welcome to episode 94 of MAME Politics. Hope everybody's doing well today, or tonight. It's actually, well, over here it's nighttime. Get a little more brightness on my face, my pretty face for you guys, my Wolverine face. How's everybody doing? Let me check the chat. Hey, we already got a bunch of people in here. Hey Trish, hey David, hey Steven, hey MMM Grower, hey Bird. Did I already say hi to Steven? Hi everybody, hi Jesse. Well, it's cool that we have, I like that we're getting, wouldn't say our audience is growing necessarily, but we are getting some newer people in here, which is cool. So welcome if you haven't been a watcher of MAME Politics, well. AC Fantastic, good to see you. I recognize you from Twitter. Today, the only plan in terms of game was let the audience decide. So I put up a tweet asking for requests, and the first request I got was for a game for the PC engine, which is the Japanese TurboGrafx 16, called Toilet Kids. I think it's called Toilet Kids, plural. Yeah, because it's 2 players. That would make sense if it's Toilet Kids, not Toilet Kid. And I just need to do a little commentary really quick on how irritated I am that I can't get on board. And it's just a problem with me. This is not a disparaging comment about Japanese culture, but I cannot get on board with the silly shooter genre. For some reason, it's like one of my least favorite genre of games. Like, I'd almost be willing to play a generic football game, and I hate football games, over a silly shooter. I don't know what it is about silly shooters, but they appeal to me like the least of any game you can imagine, besides maybe card games, turn-based RPGs that suck. I mean, in fact, I'd probably almost rather play those. So, I am playing a game that I do think, and the game itself looks like it sucks, but we're going to play it anyways. But just so you know what I mean by silly shooters, I'll just give you a brief little overview of what I mean. You really need to look no further than the games Fantasy Zone, Twin Bee, and Parodius to see exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. And I hope you find them just as irritating as I do. I actually think this is one of the things that translates the least for me from Japanese culture in terms of video game aesthetics, because I do not fucking understand it. Shooters are typically hard. They're not made for like small children, but maybe really small Japanese children are very, very good at playing shooters, because I don't understand who these games are made for. I don't get it. And I never will. So that's my rant about silly shooters. And it looks like we're about to play one of the silliest shooters ever made, called Toilet Kids, where you are a child inside of a flying toilet and you shoot, I don't know what you're shooting down, but you shoot piles of golden shit on the ground. So get ready for that. Get ready. Other than that, political topics for today, kind of piggybacking on our last topic, is this what I see as a sort of, might not be fully obvious or apparent on the surface level, but I think what's happening, what we're seeing right now, is the QAnon movement fully pivoting to take over the largest real estate in the Republican Party that it ever has before. And I think that all culminated with Tucker Carlson going against Sidney Powell. And you can still see that split happening. But I think essentially, in a symbolic way, what Tucker was doing is he was shutting down, or he was trying to shut down, in some regard, the whole QAnon sort of conspiracy narrative vibe, that energy, from taking over the entire Republican Party before Trump leaves office. Um, that is exactly what I think Tucker was doing, whether he realized it or not. Because here's the interesting thing. Q has only posted 3 times since the election. It posted, "Nothing can stop what is coming," 10 days after Election Day on November 13th. It then posted something, a rant about how nothing can stop what is coming, and actually this acronym, "Nothing Can Stop What Is Coming," actually stands for some cybersecurity voting software thing, and it points to a website on CISA.gov, which is like some voting government agency, election government agency. And it didn't really have much to say, but it did say something very interesting in the post. It didn't say anything about 4 more years, Biden's not the president. It didn't say anything like that. It actually used the phrase in this second QAnon post since the election, post POTUS. It used the phrase post POTUS. So whoever is running Q, whoever's behind it, has decided that the movement continues post POTUS, meaning post Trump. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, well, if Q's only posted 3 posts and they're this vague and nonsensical, well, I should mention the third post was simply Durham. A lot of people thought that was in reference to the John Durham look back investigation that we realized a couple months ago was a total horseshit operation that's not going to lock anybody up, right? They didn't even get Peter Strzok, the guy who had those crazy eyes in the testimony, who was deeply involved in Russiagate to a point where it's, definitely blatantly unethical, probably even borderline illegal. Had that motherfucker get away with it. Nobody from the Trump administration, Barr, Durham, nobody locked anybody up. It was all a ruse, just like I told you it was going to be. It was actually mirroring in a lot of ways the promised booms and the storm that QAnon was promising. That's why I started to get alarmed by people like Glenn Greenwald and others who are as smart as him, starting to actually look at the Durham and Barr look-back investigations as something serious other than a publicity stunt. Aaron Mate actually kind of got sucked into that too, which I thought was odd because I felt like if they had been paying more attention to QAnon, they would pull away from that and be like, wait a second, this is just the Trump administration's official Lair version of the QAnon narrative. Like, they're not going to arrest anybody. But for some reason, people actually put hope in that and thought that investigation was going to arrest people. Obviously didn't do shit. But what's interesting is that was the last post Q made, just simply Durham. Now, you're probably asking yourself, maybe, well, then how's also all this Dominion software stuff? How's all this new conspiracy stuff about election tampering, election fraud blasting out right now through right-wing media and even through mainstream Republicanism? Well, this is the interesting thing I want to talk to you about today, is this idea that I talked to Frederick Brennan, by the way, for Media Roots. That episode is coming out in a couple days. But I had a change of thinking after speaking to him, that I really do think that whoever was in control of Q is no longer in control of it. Now, I'm not saying that means that it was in control, someone like Steve Pieczenik was in control of it or even writing it. I have no idea. But I think it's very clear that when QAnon changed hands from 4chan to 8chan, then from 8chan to 8kun, there's no reason to actually believe that it's the same individual or even the same group from Chan forum, image board forum to image board forum. There's nothing proving that it's the same person. Bayonets and Harmonicas. Frederick Brennan is the founder of 8chan. He later gave it over to Jim Watkins, and Jim and Ron Watkins are currently the 2 people in charge of, not 8chan because they shut it down, but 8kun. So that was the news site that they opened. So Frederick Brennan left the website actually right before the 2016 election, although he was still working for Jim Watkins and still being paid by him to run another website called 2chan. 2chan, just so people understand what 2chan is, it's a Japanese language message board that I guess was very popular in Japan, where Jim Watkins actually believed that he had his finger on the scale of the Japanese political landscape, meaning that Jim Watkins, running this website 2chan, believed that he could dictate all the local Japanese like political elections and like parliamentary elections or whatever. And I have no idea if that's true or not. That's just what power he thought he had with this website 2chan. But the reason I bring up Frederick Brennan is because he brought up a really interesting point, which is this idea that there does seem to be different power factions trying to take over and own the Q identity and steal it away from other people. Maybe even the person who created it got it stolen away from them after that initial switch from 4chan to 8chan. But Frederick Brennan definitely believes that since it's been on 8kun, it is entirely under the control of Jim and Ron Watkins. Now, that doesn't mean that it's them posting. He just believes that it's them fully in control over it. David Kapoor, you're right. Yeah. It is interesting. I didn't really actually understand the Japanese aspect of this whole thing. And I wanted to ask Frederick Brennan more about that, but unfortunately the interview abruptly ended. He was moving. He just didn't have time. And I kind of underestimated the time it would take, so it's not his fault. It was just it was poor planning on my part. So when you listen to the interview, there are definitely some unanswered questions. You don't get the full story, but I think, and I should also mention this QAnon episode I'm putting out is not just an interview with him. It's sort of my third part to the previous two parts of the QAnon episode. I'm giving sort of an autopsy report, Q after the election, where it's going to go, what's happened since I did my last two episodes. But I think what the conversation with Frederick brought up is this really interesting concept of Q changing hands, or different people taking over Q. And I say this because what happens when Q runs out of steam? What happens when Q themselves, the poster, runs out of steam and stops posting, or just isn't that influential anymore? Because the movement itself is incredibly influential, incredibly powerful, still has a lot of energy in it. And I believe the movement itself is what's driven the Dominion voting software conspiracy stuff to the mainstream. I believe very strongly that Sidney Powell and her legal team got that stuff from QAnoners. In fact, Sidney Powell was actually in communication with Ron Watkins, the son of Jim Watkins, who runs 8chan. Also, it has to be mentioned that Ron Watkins, son of Jim Watkins, who runs 8chan, just recently appeared on OAN Network as a voter fraud expert. And the OAN Network segment wasn't just retweeted by President Trump. It was actually video clipped by him and reposted directly into his own tweet. So that's a very interesting thing. If Jim and Ron Watkins are involved in QAnon, this is the very first time where the President of the United States or any of his own people have been in direct contact and are directly working with the people who run 8chan. That is a new thing. And I think that's very notable. But the larger point that I'm trying to get at, that I want to try to open the chat up for today, is without Q, who controls the movement? Who controls the narrative? Because it's not Alex Jones anymore. He's lost his influence as far as pushing this. We already saw Steve Pieczenik go on InfoWars and try to push his own voter fraud conspiracy, which was about the quantum blockchain radioactive isotope watermark on the ballots. The sting, the big William Barr sting operation is going to catch all the Democrats red-handed. That narrative didn't float. It floated for a couple days, and then the Dominion narrative that's being largely promoted by QAnon people took center stage, took over all the space. And what's interesting is Q didn't do any of that themselves. Similar to the Wayfair conspiracy stuff, Q didn't insert anything directly into that. They came up with that on their own. And this is, I think, the subject I'd like to talk about today, is this parallel track of the QAnon movement and what it does and the energy it generates and the theories that it puts out there when it's not actually being dictated to by Q postings. Now, the odd thing is, one of the biggest QAnon personalities this whole time, even after the QAnon purge online, one of the biggest QAnon pushing personalities on Twitter still has his account and is actually actively guiding this narrative right now. Somehow this personality has more influence over the entire movement than any other figure, simply by the mere fact that Q hasn't posted, Alex Jones lost his influence, and it's a guy who goes by the name of Praying Medic. You may have come across this account before on Twitter, maybe on YouTube. It is one of the most prominent, influential QAnon accounts, social media accounts. Now, what's very strange is, once again, after Q stopped posting and kind of disappeared, Sidney Powell, the person who was just recently let go of Trump's legal team, retweeted Praying Medic continuously, all over her feed for a day. She retweeted him 5 or 6 times. That's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. She knows exactly who he is. He is arguably the biggest current QAnon influencer. So what happens, it's interesting. So someone, Frederick Brennan put it to me this way. He believed that when QAnon passed the baton from 4chan to 8chan, from 8chan to 8kun, that it was just a clever PR stunt by someone who stole the identity away. He believes it could have been any Chan board, really any entity that could have picked up that baton. It was almost a coincidence that they were at the right place in the right time to be able to pick it up. So what I'm asking now is, who picks up the baton now? Who's in control of the conspiracy narratives? Is it this guy Praying Medic who's driving the conspiracy narratives on the right? Who are the other right-wing conspiracy influencers right now that you actually see generating the narratives? That's the thing I'm curious about. I don't know how to get a handle on where that's coming from, because I would argue, Praying Medic doesn't seem like a very visionary or creative guy. He just seems, like a guy who just repeats other people's shit. So I don't think it's coming from him. I want to know where it's coming from now. Is it again coming from these crowdsourced forums? Is it coming from the QAnon forum members? I'm just wondering if anybody out there has a better handle on this than I do. Yeah, John, please give me some coffee. Black, please. Appreciate it. Bayonets and Harmonica says, did the nature of Q change a lot at that point? What are you referring to, Bayonets? The nature of Q changed a lot at what point? MMM Grower says the narrative gets crowdsourced by the QAnoners themselves. I mean, that's kind of what I'm suggesting will happen. I just don't know if that's where it's coming from right now. Bayonets and Harmonicas says, when it jumped from Chan to Chan, did the nature of Q change a lot at those points? Good question. No, it did not. From as far as I can tell, it did not. Didn't change significantly, but I could be wrong about that. Also, I'd have to look into it a little deeper. Interestingly, also, another guy named Paul Ferber, who you may have heard of, was one of the original guys who was claiming to be someone who was able to interpret Q posts on 4chan. And at one point, Paul Ferber got into this business of claiming, Q talks to me personally. I have a relationship with Q, and I can tell you that some of these Q posts are not real Q posts. So this guy Paul Ferber on 4chan started to actually call out and claim that certain Q posts weren't real. Now what happened was, when it got to 8chan, Paul Ferber also became a member of 8chan. Ron Watkins was one of the mods on 8chan, working for Jim. Paul then accused the 8chan version of Q of being fake, saying that post's not real. This is when the identity apparently got stolen away from whoever it was before. is that Ron Watkins then said, "No, it's real. You're wrong, Paul." And from that moment on, Frederick Brennan believes that the guy who originally created for QAnon got it stolen away in this sort of publicity stunt that took place on 8chan, and that these little factions started forming. Now that's definitely one way to look at what's happened here. Yeah, Steven Stern, there was a big thing about the password to the account was actually Matlock15, I believe. And a journalist actually proved that it was the password by getting into the account and posting as QAnon. There is a journalist out there who claims that he has posted as QAnon. That's what he said. I don't know if that can be proven or not. Trish, Robbie, do you think open carrying anti-fascist leftists are going to become the norm soon? It seems partly because parody is becoming a way of controlling the far left violence of protests. Trish, no, I don't see that happening because, first of all, it's going to take a big sea change. I only see that happening in places like Oregon and Washington, where there is a pretty large left presence, where I believe they do have open carry laws. Places like Virginia, other places in the South, I don't see that happening as much. But I do see it happening actually in some of those places I just mentioned. I could see that happening there. Bird Worldist, that was a rumor. Actually, I think Praying Medic or someone else actually started that rumor, claiming there was a $1 million ad up on the deep web essentially offering to sell the QAnon identity to someone. But I didn't see any evidence of that. I don't think that was actually proven. Are we going to do Toilet Kids? So I should also give Vic, VP of Game Case Arcades, a shout out. And I don't know if he's watching right now, but I want to mention his products. Gave me an extremely good deal on a custom build MAME system, PC. I picked all the parts. He actually technically chose most of the parts for me. He let me purchase them myself. Very easy to work with, dude. Gave me a very realistic timeline of when it would be done. He actually sent it to me sooner than what he originally claimed, which was cool. Yes, that is poo, Klitsch. You're exactly right. It's golden poo. So if you're interested in getting a system like the one that I'm using here, and you have a couple grand to spare, a couple grand to spend, or more, I would recommend giving Vic some business. And also, if you want to spend even more than that, like if you want to get something, like for your new house, like a living room piece or something like that, he does amazing bar top builds, and he also does custom MAME cabinet builds. He'll do pretty much just about anything you want, I think, as long as it's within reason. My original request for him was to build a joystick with a PC inside of it. And I'm glad I didn't do that in retrospect, because I think that would have been very cumbersome and more expensive than what I was wanting to spend, and also just not really feasible in a lot of ways. I mean, you could technically do it. It just doesn't make that much sense. Would have been easier to hook up the joysticks and controllers, though, doing it that way than the way he's had it set up. Because what he did for me also was he normally does Xbox wireless controllers for people's systems, unless they want a hardwired joystick like in a MAME cabinet. But he did I think this was his first build where he made a double PlayStation 4 controller setup, wireless controls. And it's great. I mean, having wireless controls, being able to just start the system up like it's a console. It has a scheduled task where it just starts right into the main menu. when it starts. It's pretty much like having a console system with every video game system in it that just happens to be a PC. So yeah, let me give his info out just so it's out there. So here's his YouTube channel. Pac-Man Championship Edition 2. John, do you know if that's it's a PC game? Is it a PlayStation game? What is that for? I never heard of it. Anytime you guys want to request a game, please name the system. Yeah, John, I don't think that's going to be doable. I don't have an Xbox One. So it's basically, I have everything besides PlayStation 4, Xbox, and Xbox One. So if you can think of any game for any system besides those, I have it. I even have pretty much every MS-DOS game. Like, for real. So, take care, Persona. Yes, we will, Trish, for sure. I don't know when, but we will. Abby is quite busy right now, and so I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'll let you know for sure. I'll let you know. Pickle Wars. What is Pickle Wars, Klitsch? What is that for? Is Home Alone 1 the actual good one, Michael? Let's get some toilet kids in. Some fucking toilet kids. Toilet kid that shit up. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, wait, what happened? Sorry. Wasn't starting. Toilet Kids wasn't starting. Give me a sec. Oh, damn it. I think Hyperspin crashed. Well, that sucks. I have to just start over again. Give me a second. Alrighty. We're back. Oh no. What happened? My joysticks went offline. So I gotta restart the system. That's weird. That's never happened before. Okay. Reboot. Yeah, get Praying Medic in here. Where is Praying Medic? Can we get him in here? I want him in here. Demar DeRozan says, what do you think of Peter Thiel dishing out money to right-wing bloggers and Twitter guys like BAP? Who is BAP? Because Peter Thiel actually gave money to how do you pronounce it? Mencius Moldbug startup company. And a lot of people have like respect that guy. They think he's like some kind of like renegade intellectual or something. But you know, if you're taking money from Peter Thiel, it's kind of over. I mean, so I don't know. I don't really know what his deal is. Oh, sorry, I didn't. So these controllers, I didn't put them on. Okay. Now we're in. Okay, I know I did promise Toilet Kids. I did promise it, even though I'm not looking forward to it. We're going to do some Toilet Kids just to get that shit out of the way. Toilet Kids, here we come. Here we are.
Loading complete.
Huh. That's a weird intro. So he gets on the toilet. Wow. What? Okay, this is definitely the first video game I've ever seen that shows a child's penis. That was a little unexpected. Sorry, guys. This is horrific. Oh my god, this game is the worst. It's like even made more frustrating because you have like those ground-based attacks where you gotta like shoot, like target shit on the ground, like literal shit. Because this game you're shooting piles of shit. Fucking A, dude. Oh god. Is that just two spiders with big asses behind them? What's going on? Fuck. Fuck. Dude. Oh, I can only hit him when he's off this fucking spider web. This game is horrific on so many levels. And that was easy too. That was the easy mode. So I look like I start flying out of a bathtub. Oh my god, this game sucks so bad. So shitty. I can't do it, guys. I can't fucking do it. I'm out. I'm out. Sorry about that. Yeah, I can't do that one. I can't do Toilet Kids. Sorry for whoever requested it. That game is awful. And I would like you to convince me maybe if there's any good uh, silly shooters out there. Are there any silly shooters that aren't horrific? I just played a really, really good. There's a bunch of arcade shooters that only came out in Japan in the post 2000 time period. That's really, really cool. Never came out here for some reason, but just really cool games. Hold on, let's see. It's a little off. It's a little off my orientation here. Okay, that's better. Cho Anika. Brock, what is that for? Is that arcade? I'm not aware of that game. There is a cool game I kind of wanted to show you guys. It's a 2-player game, and maybe someday I'll play it with Lori. Although I can't say that she would like it. It definitely doesn't seem like the game would be up her alley. It's very much up my alley, though. And I do have a weird obsession with late 80s Atari arcade games. There is something very special about the aesthetics in their later period games, especially. And they really nailed the FM synthesis sound in a way that I don't think any other arcade manufacturers did. Where it's got this weird, smooth, heavy fatness to it. Where like all the FM sound just like, it's kind of like eargasm FM synthesis. Volta Vin, I want to see some hentai Japanese porn with FM synthesis soundtracks. That sounds pretty interesting. I've heard people talk a lot about old porn music that has like synthesizers in it, but I've barely heard any of it myself. I've heard the Patrick Cowley, the gay porn stuff that he released that's supposed to be porn music soundtracks, which is pretty great. But I haven't really heard any. I don't really know where to like find anything else. Is there like a compilation that someone's put out of like the sleaziest porn soundtracks or something like that? So yeah, the other game I wanted to show you guys today is well, I might show you some others too, but this is one that for some reason really, I don't know, really resonated with me. I don't know if Matt Mose actually ever made music for a porn. I know they use gay porn sounds, like of like balls slapping against asses, things like that, in their music. I know that. That was something that I actually told my friend. They were doing a workshop thing in like some San Francisco art gallery like 15 years ago. It was like when they first started to hit it big with Bjork, and he got to talk to them both for like an hour, and he just poked their brain about like all their different, all the different ways they make sound. They seem like really cool guys. I remember being really excited when I first started playing out noise music, like when I was like 15 years old. I performed on this thing called the Day of Noise that still happens on KZSU, which is a local college radio station here in the Bay Area. Matmos was actually playing right before I had played. Two bands I think before me. And I actually missed their performance, but I remember being like very impressed that apparently all they did was they brought in a giant bucket of oatmeal and just had a bunch of microphones, and they were both performing with the oatmeal through effects and like through loopers and stuff. I thought that was pretty impressive. Hey, Terra Toddler, good to see you. Great to see you. I don't think I've seen you in here in a while. David, which one is the new Matmos? Is that the is that the one that's kind of like a super band where it's like 100 different collaborators
Loading
on all the
complete.
different tracks?
The human has been neutralized. Intruder alert.
Zach Driak. Yes, I could. I would be happy to. I could actually just. I mean, it might be a little boring for the audience, but I would be happy just to do a little sales pitch video for Vic's system, if anybody's interested. Currently, the only game I cannot pull up on here for some reason, it's still we haven't figured out what's going on yet. But Virtual Boy and Atari 7800 emulator has some issues launching. Don't know what's going on with that yet, but I'm very confident we'll figure it out. Vic has been extremely helpful. Basically, any questions I have, any fixes, any tweaks that I need, he's been very helpful. So that's one nice thing about buying something from somebody like Vic instead of like a company that's online that sells hyperspin drives. That is something that's another way you can get these type of systems, is just buying a drive that has a certain terabyte amount of ROMs and systems already on it. But what you don't get with that is you don't get all the configuration that Vic did for what I paid him to do. You don't get all the testing. I mean, yeah, sure, you can technically sell a drive, just image a drive and just duplicate it to someone and assume that everything's going to be working on it. But you don't know until you actually test it on a working PC system. So I recommend against just buying a hyperspin drive. I don't think people should just buy a drive. I think if you're going to spend the money, I mean, if you're going to buy a drive, you might as well just download all the ROMs yourself. They're very easy to find these days. The whole sets are fairly easy. You don't have to like have a special membership to a website anymore to find them. It's not like that. If you want the newest ROM sets, like the most up-to-date, MAME ROM sets and things like that, you got to be a little deeper into the community. But generally speaking, I mean, it's not that hard to set up the actual software end yourself in terms of just getting all the ROMs and emulators. The part that is hard to set up is the control schemes, getting things like PlayStation 4 controllers to work on all of the games on the system consistently. That type of stuff, I think it takes honestly probably the most work. So, but yeah, I would be happy to do that. I think Vic would like that if I showed off everything the system is capable of doing. And also what Vic put together is something that other people aren't really willing to put together in terms of the level of thoroughness with especially the newer stuff that's on there. I mean, I'm telling you, he put on like 100 PC games, for example, that are like, from the last 2 or 3 years. It's an incredible library. I was playing The Rise of Tomb Raider, a game I would never play in a million years, never give a shit about. But I read online it has a stereoscopic 3D glasses feature, so I turned it on and I was like, holy fuck, this is like one of the best looking video games I've ever seen. I mean, you don't really realize how good regular 3D looks until you see, I think, like a modern video game running in 3D. Because almost any movie you go see in the theater right now, it's just dialed down 3D. It's fake 3D. They really, I do stick by the theory that they dial it down because they don't want people to get motion sick. Which is lame. There's even stupid stuff now where it's like, oh, we can't make a VR game where you move around because people will get sick. It's like, what the fuck, dude? The whole point is you want to get fully immersed. Like, you're really going to build an entire industry of video games around worrying about people getting motion sick? That's dumb. Make them fucking power through it. Let's push the envelope here and do some crazy shit. I'm sick of this, like, dialing shit down. Like, do you remember when you used to go see movies in the theaters? The sound used to, like, be, like, scarily loud. I mean, I'm remembering when I saw Spider-Man 3 in the movie theater. It was so intense and so loud that we took my grandma that I was actually worried at a point in the movie that she might have a heart attack. That's how fucking loud and intense the sound used to be. You can't go to a movie and get that experience anymore. It's like, oh, it's too loud. Like, let's turn this shit down. Like, we got to make everything comfortable for everybody. And it's like fucking dialed back, like fucking wishy-washy shit. So even going to the movies anymore is, to me, not as exciting because you just don't get that bombastic experience. The Simpsons did a skit about what, Trish? About movie theaters having louder sound? Zach, yeah, I completely understand. That is that's completely understandable. I trusted Vic based on his videos, based on what I read about him. Talked to a few other people. So yeah, I mean, I think that some of the other people who do this kind of work, they just want to push stuff out the door. And if you go on eBay or some other websites like Etsy has a lot of systems, I would actually not go that route. Because what I did was I found a guy on eBay originally, seemed like a totally competent builder. Michael Buchanan. Yeah, the Dolby Theater I've heard is very, very loud. I heard the Dolby Theater is like how an old school theater is supposed to be. What movie did you see there, by the way? What movie did you see at the Dolby Theater? I'm curious. You don't usually go see generic movies. Hi, by the way.
Intruder alert.
Oh, Joker. Nice. That's pretty funny that they showed Joker in the Dolby Cinema. That's an interesting choice. I actually am sad I didn't get to see Gemini Man because it's probably a terrible movie. It was dumb for me to even say that sentence, but I'm sad I didn't get to see it because apparently the movie was shot and shown in something like 60 frames per second in Dolby Digital 3D, laser projected. From a technological standpoint, like no other movie has been projected that way. So that's part of why I wanted to see that. That would have been just a weird thing to witness. They aren't even showing any other 3D movies in Dolby Digital, which is a shame because from what I've heard, the laser projectors actually completely eliminate the darkening effect of putting on 3D glasses. So the proper way to see a movie in 3D would be on a laser projected system. My dinner with Andre and Dolby Surround Sound. Dolby Atmos. My dinner with Andre would be even better. John Gold, what did you think of Death in the Family? I was a little underwhelmed by it because I didn't go into it expecting it to just be 75% recycled footage from previous DC animated movies. I thought it was going to be an original new movie. So I was a little bit thrown off by that. And I guess it made me realize how amazing it would be if they just made an entire Nightfall, not full-length single movie, because I don't think you could do it justice. It would need to be like a 3-part movie. 3 or 4 parts. It need to be Nightfall. Well, actually, it need to be the lead up to Nightfall, and then Night Quest. And maybe Night's End. I don't remember. What was the third one? It would need to be basically the entire story arc where Batman reclaims the mantle, comes back to Gotham City, heals from his back injury. Need to be the whole fucking cigar. Hey, Adam. I have not heard of Possessor. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. I can't remember the last time I actually saw a good like body horror movie. It's not really a horror movie, but the movie Border. And I think it was made. It's a Swedish movie, I think, and it's written by the same person who did Let the Right One In. It's directed by someone else, but the movie Border is very bizarre. not even really consider it a horror movie. It's just really extremely unique and strange, and it's sort of horrifying and unsettling, but it's not a horror movie. Yeah, Michael, I think Kelly actually recommended that one to me. Very, very, I really liked that movie a lot. And what I also liked about it is it had some sappiness to it that other movies that usually get that weird don't have. And I kind of like that when a weird movie kind of inserts a little bit of that into it, and it works, and it worked for me in that movie. Because I feel like a lot of those indie, weird, kind of art housey movies veer completely away from that. Like, we're not going to do a traditional story arc. We're going to, it's going to make this like as weird and as unsettling as possible. But I feel like that movie actually had all the right pieces and sort of put them all together in a really nice way. Supernatural. Oh, that show. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that shit. Speaking of David Cronenberg's son, so I guess I didn't realize he's the guy who made Possessor. I've heard that David Cronenberg's son has a new movie coming out, so that must be what it is. Brock, you saw Howard the Duck for the first time the other night. Well, say what you want about Howard the Duck, but what's not to like about a 10-minute long prop plane chase scene with starring Tim Robbins? And also and I'm not being sarcastic about this, but beautifully done, perhaps some of the most beautifully done stop motion animation of any film in the 1980s in the third act, done by Phil Tippett, who also did Ed 209 and RoboCop. I mean, that shit's pretty incredible. Captain Waffles, I just recently started following Caleb. I haven't thought about having him on Media Roots Radio, but I will now that you've brought him up. I like a lot of the stuff he says. I like everybody I follow. I don't agree with everybody. I'm not like a big tent type of person in general. I'll openly disagree with people a lot if you follow me on Twitter. But Caleb seems like he's on a unique track. I don't know how someone like him could still work at RT, to be honest. But, I'm not going to judge anybody. I thought RT used to be a hell of a lot better during the time when Abby was on it. And not just because Abby was on it, but just in general, it was a lot better. So, but I think that, if that works for him, it works for him. So no judgment at all. Jeffrey Jones is someone you hate to love. Yeah, Jeffrey Jones. I remember as a child being like really, for some reason I was really, really disturbed by the scene in Howard the Duck where Jeffrey Jones' character puts the cigarette lighter from the car on his tongue. Like when he's starting to like transform into the alien. Like that shit like wrecked me as a kid for some reason. I don't know why. It still viscerally upsets me when I think about it. Like, it's just a really weird scene to throw in a children's movie. It's not really, you can't really call it a children's movie, but how many children's movies from that era really were appropriate for kids if you think about it? I mean, I was even thinking about Labyrinth the other day, and that movie is very fucking disturbing. The scene where she wakes up in like the junkyard version of her room and she like comes at it, like as a kid, that fucking scared the shit out of me. Or Time Bandits. You remember, did anybody here see the movie Time Bandits as a kid? Spoilers for Time Bandits. Spoilers. The ending for Time Bandits is absolutely terrifying for a child. So it's like it's supposed to all be a dream. He had this adventure. He went through time. Then he comes back and his parents' house burnt down. Even though it's sort of ambiguous if it was a dream or not. And there's like some evil object that was like from the movie earlier that belongs. I think it was like a piece of the main villain. His body exploded, and the aftermath of the movie is there's like the fire crew is there putting out his house fire, and his parents are standing around in their pajamas like on the front yard, front lawn, and there's like a firefighter talking to the kid, and as the kid looks over at his parents like lean down to touch the piece of the exploded bad guy, and the kid yells, "Don't touch that!" And as soon as the parents touch it, they both explode and just like die. And like the rest of the people in the neighborhood or like the fire crews and stuff don't react to it. And it's just, for some reason to me it was just like a fucking, I mean, of all the movies Terry Gilliam it's probably not one of his best ones, but it has the best ending, I think, of all of his movies. It just perfectly ends. The caterpillar and labyrinth is the best. Yes, it was. Legend was very freaky. I don't even know if Legend was Legend considered even made for like kids at all. Labyrinth is based on a board game that is actually entertaining. Interesting. I never knew that before. Have you guys heard the original soundtrack for Legend? There are two alternate soundtracks. Well, there's the theatrical soundtrack, which is done by Jerry Goldsmith. Then there is the alternate, mostly unreleased soundtrack, and I think only a couple tracks from it made it on the soundtrack, from Tangerine Dream of the movie Legend, which you should check out. I actually don't remember what the soundtrack sounds like, to be honest. I remember it being decent, though. Brock, I agree with you. Legend does not hold up. I think in comparison, I was saying on a previous episode, in terms of fantasy movies that do hold up, it's Labyrinth, Neverending Story, and Return to Oz hold up extremely well. I think individually, they all still sort of stand the test of time. Incredibly good special effects. Return to Oz, I think, is an overlooked one, though, because it's like, maybe people don't think it's as dark as it is because it's Oz, but it's actually like very indebted to the actual Frank L. Baum original Wizard of Oz universe. Yeah, the Wheelers in Return to Oz were fucking scary as fuck with that like mask that like they would pull up on their face, and it was like a scary looking like metallic face, and it would look sort of like the guy underneath with like the weird eyeshadow on. The deadly desert that just turns you straight into sand. Fuck. Yeah, Return to Oz is absolutely brilliant. And it's so cool too how they also sort of tease out the original Oz story on it. Like it's like you don't understand if you've only seen Wizard of Oz, the original movie. It's completely different than the book. It just has a completely different vibe to it. The Wizard of Oz book is more almost like it's like satire, which there are aspects of it. Obviously, the movie, is sort of satirical, like, the Tin Man looking for a brain, the Scarecrow looking for a brain, or the lion looking for his courage and things like that. The whole book is like that, where it's like silly, sort of double entendres. In the book Wizard of Oz, Emerald City is a hoax. That's one of the coolest parts about the book that I was like as a kid, or I think I was going to be like 13. I wasn't a young kid. When I first read Wizard of Oz, I was really impressed by the whole concept of the Emerald City being fake, and that when you enter it, you're made to put on green glasses so that you see it as an Emerald City, even though it's really not. I thought that was a brilliant thing when I was a kid. I don't even know if in the Return to Oz movie they reference that at all, but it's based off of the actual L. Frank Baum universe. TikTok, Jack Pumpkinhead, all that shit comes straight from the books, and not just like the concept of it, but the visual, the actual illustrations that went along with the original Wizard of Oz books are super cool. And they look exactly like how they're depicted in Return to Oz. Like they were so respectful in ways that they absolutely didn't need to be, which makes me sort of see the movie as almost like a labor of love. And what also makes it sort of a labor of love is it includes the lore from all of the Oz books that preceded it. And it's sort of meant to be a sequel to all of those. There really isn't a Return to Oz book. So highly recommend at least checking out, the movie and some of the books if you haven't read any of them. Oh yeah, Emu. Absolutely. I'll lay it out right here, no problem. So one of the specific reasons I distrust Nico House and Convo Couch is I distrust anybody who doubled that down that hard on Tulsi Gabbard. Automatically. And not just doubled down that hard on Tulsi Gabbard, but actually starts promoting narratives that Tulsi puts out that are problematic as well, like the pro-Modi stuff, the anti-Muslim rhetoric about Kashmir, the pro-war on terror rhetoric. They often espouse that kind of rhetoric. And I believe they dabble in just right-wing clickbait a lot of the time when they want to go against Democrats. They don't really carve out narratives from the left. They don't attack Democrats necessarily from the left very often. They find that sort of middle position of finding things to attack the Democrats with that are also very compatible with sort of the generic clickbait right. And I see them doing that as a strategic sort of careerism path. But it's also very interesting. You don't really see any of Nico or Convo Couch's followers espousing, they're not self-identified leftist or progressives really at all anymore. So you'll see an interesting shift where most of their audience are people who are just really hardcore into Tulsi or actual Trump people. And that's just kind of the way it evolved. It didn't go fully H.A. Goodman, but that's the grift that they've both chosen. Now, what's also interesting is they personally attacked us, me and Abby, for criticizing Tulsi. Now, I find that very interesting because I cannot imagine myself being in a position now, maybe when I was very young, when I was just getting into politics, of attacking someone personally for openly criticizing and digging up facts about a politician that makes them look bad. That is, to me, crossing a line. If you're actually going to not just like attack me on social media, but then use your media platforms to also attack me and to chop videos up of my sister talking bad about Tulsi and blast them all over the internet without actually addressing our criticisms about Tulsi, I see that as just cheap, petty information war shilling for the person that you're an official campaign surrogate for. And unfortunately, Nico let that out eventually, that he was an official surrogate for Tulsi Gabbard. And look, when you're debating someone about a politician, it's nice to know that they're an official surrogate before you're debating them, or that they plan to become one. Otherwise, that debate seems a little unfairly framed to me. So that, I already had, many problems with Nico's level of honesty, his authenticity. I don't think he has either, personally speaking. But yeah, the Jack Posobiec thing, when he went over to OAN and appeared in that Antifa documentary, to me that was just signifying that he had fully leaned into that direction.
The human has been neutralized.
Yeah, Emu, I don't know. I don't believe Nico. I mean, yeah, maybe he has connections to intelligence like he claims, but I wouldn't take anything he says at face value like that. Look, here's another funny thing he did continuously in our debate. One of the most dishonest fucking things, shitty things I've ever seen anyone do in a debate, frankly. And I wish I was more aggressive towards him about this. I was too nice about this. The amount of times during our debate that he was like, oh, no. Tulsi does think that. But she's not talked about it in public. Like we just talked about that. When I was hanging out with Tulsi, yeah, she told me she believes that. So you're wrong about that. And I'd be like, well, she hasn't said anything about it. So that just your word. So we just have to take your word that No, she's good on that. She told me. Like, that shit is fucking stupidity. And not just stupidity, but actually, like, really deceptive, manipulative tactics that will not stand. I mean, to me, it's just super dishonest. Even if he's telling the truth, that Tulsi did tell him things in private, that doesn't count. If you're a politician and you're privately telling people one thing and then in public saying something else, that doesn't count. So, yeah. And then also, you know, Nico still hasn't explained why he appeared in a documentary made by Jack Posobiec. He still hasn't explained it. You know? So to say, oh, you're just peddling in guilt by association, this is a smear. It's like, well, what is his explanation for it? Why did he appear in it? What was his reason? I mean, it's just like, so it's like when you don't explain things like that and you do them to increase your cred or status or whatever, I can only assume that you're doing it, you know, you're putting blinders on. Let's just assume Nico actually has progressive or leftist ideals. I'm assuming you're sort of putting blinders on to, you know, basically just plug yourself into a media network that you think will get you a lot of hype. I'm going to play this while you guys chat it up a little bit. Oh, shit. Fuck. Hold on a second. This one needs to be, for some reason the settings on this one keep going out. Oh, you know why it is? I fucking know why. It's my fault. Actually, I shouldn't have done that. That was a bad one.
Loading complete.
So if I don't start so one thing I have to keep remembering is if I don't start Hyperspin with both controllers on, sometimes the second controller doesn't pick up. And I keep getting confused thinking that that the controllers are not properly assigned on MAME because it doesn't show joystick 2 in the tab settings, but it's because I didn't have it plugged in. Even though it's wireless, it's because I didn't have it on, I mean. So check out how fucking good this FM music is. Seriously, dude. Listen to this shit. I don't fuck around. I don't hype stuff up. I tell you the straight truth. Isn't that funny? What's up with these games where you play in the corner of the screen? Well, this is a two-player game, which is pretty cool. So you can actually play two players in the same little environment. So this is a later period Atari game called Zybots, which never got a home release of any kind, I don't think. I don't think it came out on like Genesis or anything. And I gotta admit, I really love it. I think it's a really cool game. If you're interested in sampling any of these FM synthesis games, Brock, go through the whole Atari library from like 1984, 1985 on. It's incredible. Even Paperboy, Pit Fighter, even just sampling from the music on those games is really, really good. Michael can attest to this. I did sample a relatively good amount of drums from Atari FM soundtracks. You know, what would be cool is if this game was actually deathmatch. Like, I bet after they made it, someone probably maybe thought that would have been a cool thing to implement. Because the 2-player mode is not a deathmatch mode, but it would have been actually a really interesting thing if they made it into like a where you could fight the second player. Oh shit, dude, listen to that. Seriously. Sounds like Front 242. Like a funky Front 242. Jesus Christ, listen to that shit. Like, what I love about these Atari games is they didn't use any sample. I mean, listen to this. There's no samples. Listen how fucking hard those kick drums hit. And those snare drums sound great.
One intruder destroyed.
I love the speech synthesis too on these old Atari games. Fantastic. Probably the most famous game they made from this era is Temple of Doom. Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. You guys may have seen that as kids. All their other games besides Paperboy and Temple of Doom were relatively obscure. I mean, Pit Fighter was pretty popular, I guess. But I don't remember seeing this one ever. It's not too hard with one player, though. Let's see what you guys are talking about.
One intruder destroyed.
If life is a leaf, yeah, I get what you're saying about Greenwald. He's not in a unique or a let's say bipartisan way. Greenwald is putting his needle into a groove that already exists, that is basically a free speech, anti-censorship grift by a specific political sect of people who are transphobic, who are, anti-woke, anti-left, post-left, mugged by reality, new neocons, which I would argue Matt Taibbi seems to be veering in that direction. I mean, he seems obsessed. I mean, it's actually really fascinating. If you read writings from Irving Kristol and Donald Kagan from the early 1970s, they sound similar to things that Greenwald and Matt Taibbi now are saying about woke culture. New neocon bros. Brock, sad to say I already beat you to it. Lori, my wife, and I played a 2-player elevator action return spectacular on MAME Politics, I think maybe like 30 or 40 episodes ago. That was one of our earlier episodes. Fantastic game. I do have it for Saturn now, but the arcade version is better. And that's the version we played. Okay. One more game. One more random select for today. Should it be an arcade game? Yes, Ned, I did watch his stand-up special. Pretty incredible. It was incredible in the sense that the dude really can embody being a realistic douchebag for an hour straight and not break. Maybe he did break and I don't remember, but I mean, extremely impressive. I haven't seen him do a special like that live, like a comedy set live, but my friend has a couple times actually. He did stand up in that similar way, where it's almost just like a mockery of stand-up comedians, and he said it was brilliant. Especially being able to see it in front of a live audience, because he said most of the audience did not get it at all. Ned Ryerson, good, interesting you ask. Ned Ryerson says, I wonder what stand-up comedians thought of it. I know your mom's house loved it. Oh, shit, really? Okay, I actually want to see their breakdown of it. I like Tom Segura. Well, I know for sure that there was a lot of comedians a long time ago who hated it, and they thought that Tim Heidecker was making fun of them, including Mark Maron, who confronted Tim Heidecker about this on the What the Fuck podcast. It's actually probably the only, I mean, other than hearing Tim Heidecker be interviewed, if you're interested to hear more about like his personal life and stuff, which he goes into, the actual, the most interesting part of the interview for me was where Mark Maron confronts him about that and then admits that he had like a chip on his shoulder for years about it because he took it personally. Like that Mark Maron's ego was so, over the top. And it's probably not just him. I mean, Tim Heidecker did a really good job skewering that sort of coked out, leather jacket wearing, edgy 80s, 90s comic. I mean, he really nails it. So I could see why some of those people would be offended. I mean, sometimes just showing what you act like and how fucking bad it is enough to just like tear you down, without even making it personally about you. It just depends, Okay, let's see. Let's get a weird one on here. Let's do a weird one. How about I play a laser disc game for you guys? Does that sound weird? A laser disc game? I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay, let's try to see if there's which one on there should play. Super Don Quixote. Thayer's Quest. This game looks really shitty. Here's how good Neil Hamburger is. When I first
Loading complete.
When I first told Abby that Neil Hamburger was Greg Turkington, she did not believe me. She was like, wait. She's like, what? And it took her like a few seconds for it to register. Because she wasn't super familiar with Neil Hamburger.
Hold down the trigger for continuous firing. Use the panel buttons to...
Second. Something's wrong. It just takes a while. Takes a while.
Use the joystick to maneuver the fighter plane. Hold down the trigger for continuous firing. Use the panel buttons to roll the plane to the right or left, or to change the direction of fire.
This is going to be a weird game. So this game is called...
In green? I copy, Big Daddy, but I... What? I don't believe...
This is weird as shit. Wow, the sound is... Holy shit, I'm gonna turn that down. Why is that sound so intense? Oh my god. This is such a bad game. Here, I'm gonna exit out of this one. The control is reversed on that one. It's hard to play. I'll play Dragon's Lair. Someone else brought it up. Here we go. Oh shit, John. Too late.
Loading complete.
Too late. Oh no, you said Space Ace. Okay. You did say Space Ace. Here we go.
Dragon's Lair, a
no, we're
fantasy
doing
adventure
Dragon's
where
Lair.
you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon. You control the actions of a daring adventurer finding his...
Ooh, I got killed instantaneously. Fuck, I forgot what to do. This game was so hard, I remember. Wait, and it's going randomized. Wait, hold on a second. I feel like it's not the game is progressing by itself without me actually... Yeah, something's not set right. Okay, that was strange. John, I don't think I actually won during most of those parts. I think the game seems to be progressing on its own without it actually. So like, it'll just start at the next part, even though in Dragon's Lair, if you die right there, you don't get to go to the next part. So something is off with the order of the laser disc inside. I have to figure out what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of that laser disc section. So that one needs to be... We need to do something to tweak that one. The gun laser disc games are all working fine, which are pretty silly. Let's give one of those a spin. These games are fucking ridiculous. This game is absolutely absurd.
Loading complete.
Hi, you're new around these parts. You heading into my daddy's town? He's the mayor. Well, if you are, you better take up some target practice first.
Yes, it was.
There's a mean bunch
Was it
showed
Arcade
up,
Gabe?
and I'm scared. Well, you best set your sights. I'll see you back in town.
Stranger! Stranger! Howdy, stranger. We need your help. Mad Dog McCree's gang is taking over the town.
This is so bad.
The
Holy
mayor
fuck,
and his
this is the
daughter
worst
been
shit
taken
ever.
hostage out to Mad
I
Dog's
love how bad
hideout.
this is.
Sheriff, he's locked up in jail. We're gonna have to get him out to help with the... Let's see what kind of a shot you are, Pilgrim. Take a crack at this bottle. Nice shooting. Try another one. Nice shooting. Try another one. Try another one.
Missed it. This game is so fucking weird. I love it though. I love how sleazy it is. It's like almost like they hired one of those old West stunt show troops to just like film a whole day with them, and they're just like, okay, now we made a video game. I mean, it's basically what it is. But what's fun about it is they actually do a relatively good job framing the shot so it's consistent enough. Even though you'll see like trees blowing differently in the wind and shit. You'll see what I mean.
Hey, old Carter, don't tell my thing.
Fuck you. This game is so sleazy.
Careful, that's Mad Dog's fault.
Oh my god. Holy shit. Amazing. Amazing.
Looking at my keys, stranger?
Yeah, I'm looking at your keys,
You
you
wouldn't be
fucking
trying to get the
idiot.
sheriff out of jail now, would you?
Fuck you.
Chaco! Huh? Show him what we did in trouble.
Boom. Fuck you. I have Time Traveler on here. It's so bad. I have it on here. Oh, he killed the bartender, so I get the keys from her now? Interesting. Okay, so I beat this. I beat that.
You looking for trouble?
Shit! Fuck!
You better work on your sharpshooting, stranger. You only got 2 lives left.
You think you're in the middle of a hurricane
It'd be funny if I got like a YouTube copyright thing for this. Wait, fuck! What happened? How come I can't? Oh, okay, good. I wonder where this is filmed. Fuck!
You...
Dude. Son of a bitch. That's hard. Mad Dog McCree. It's quite a challenge.
Nice shoot.
It was filmed in Niles Canyon. I hope so. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a wrap for today, guys. Little Mad Dog McCree, little Toilet Kids, some Dragon's Lair didn't seem to be working properly. And what else did we get? Zybots. So 3 games out of 4. Pretty good. Yeah, let's do this again soon. Good to see everybody. And if you want to get all the previous 93 episodes of this show, you can get access to them by becoming a Patreon subscriber of mine at patreon.com/Robbie Martin. Good night.